Welcome to the Gestalt IT Rundown, where each time we meet, we run down the IT news of the week with varying degrees of snarkiness. I'm your host, Stephen Foskett, and joining me today is Zach DeMeyer. Today is National Bring Your Kitten to Work Day, or at least that's what I'm going to call it because I've got these guys. Zach, did you bring a kitten?
You know, I don't have a kitten, Steven, but you've got one for both of us. So just keep them nice and warm for me.
Yep, these are Marvin and Walter, and I'd like to remind everybody watching to support your local humane society. Setting our kittens aside, let's turn to the news of the week from IT. And as usual for the Gestalt IT Rundown, we got a lot of security stuff to cover here. So a new study by HP Wolf Security shows that 91% of IT professionals feel that even in the COVID-19 pandemic, they've had to prioritize their company's operations over security practices. To add to that, 73% of these respondents claimed that cybersecurity has taken a back seat in their organization, with 81% believing that remote work is the new security ticking time bomb. Zach, this is pretty worrying considering that every week, it seems like on the rundown, we're talking about a new security issue, and yet companies aren't focusing on it. Is work from home putting a strain on security overall?
You know, Stephen, I think it is. Honestly, there's a lot of really great technologies out there that give people the ability to monitor their work, remote workers and to be able to keep tabs on their network and stuff. But at the end of the day, if your company really just wants to keep things moving at a high tick, then you're not going to be able to receive the budget that you need to actually pay for these security tools. And as such, like a lot of these respondents are saying, it seems that security is just being put on the back burner. And, like we said, there's plenty of stories in the past weeks and even this week that certainly point to this. So just this fact that it seems like the higher ups, if you will, in these companies are not taking security seriously just really has me scratching my head. I mean, there's so many, malware strains and botnets that are just looming over today's organizations. And, like these people in this survey are saying, remote work certainly has a big role to play in it, just given the fact that people are working outside of IT's direct control and the budgets just aren't there to be able to support the tooling that they need to keep tabs on these remote workers. And so, yeah, it's concerning to me personally, and no doubt to many of the people watching. So, one can only hope that some of the people with more of the purchasing power kind of see these sort of trends and realize, maybe we should kind of put, just pump the brakes a little bit and go back to basics and really look into some very core security practices, because it seems like some people these days they just don't care. So I guess time will tell here. But onto a slightly different news story for you, Stephen. After being first announced in 2019, Kioxia has finally shipped their XL flash line of storage drives, which they are pitching as storage class memory to compete with Intel's Optane. The FL6 has a PCIe Gen 4 interface and sports NVMe v1.4, promising up to a 3.2 terabyte capacity with a 60 write per day drive endurance, surpassing the abilities of TLC flash. Now, Stephen, what's your take on this new entry into the space?
Well, I think that one thing that I just need to say right off the bat is this thing ain't storage class memory. It's basically an SLC flash drive, and we've had those before. Now, it's a really good one, and it's got a lot of really nice features to it. And frankly, it's probably going to come in at a really nice price, but it's not storage class memory in any way, shape, or form. And I think that it's disingenuous of the company to even claim that they're competing with Optane with this thing. I mean, it reminds me of a company that comes out with a plug-in hybrid and tries to pitch it as a competitor for an all-electric long-range vehicle. It's just not the same thing. It does have some nice specs, especially compared to other flash SSDs. The big ones are the fact that, we're looking at some pretty fast, low latency here. Optane is it's an order of magnitude faster, but we've got some low latency here. We've got some good IOPS. And most importantly, the thing has pretty good endurance, which is a big problem with flash drives. But that being said, it's really not in the same league at all with the Intel Optane, not the last generation, but especially not the current next generation Optane, which provides much better IOPS, much lower latency, and really sets it into a different class here. It frustrates me that we're seeing the same thing happen with storage class memory that we've seen in the past with, for example, software-defined storage, where a company will just latch on to a term and then kind of roll over it and say, yeah, we've got that too. Check this thing out. When in reality, what they've got here is a decent, nice, high-performance flash drive. I wish they could just kind of stick with that and say, hey, this is a really fast enterprise SSD. You should use it in places that you might consider using, for example, an Optane drive, but it's really not the same thing. So switching back to security, I hate to do this to you, but as if the pandemic wasn't hard enough for IT staff, now they have to contend with the plague of bots. Yeah, that's right. A big new botnet, 250,000 nodes. It's called Maris, which is apparently the Latvian word for plague. And researchers in Russia have found that it's the source of the majority of DDoS attacks that happened over the last several months. Zach, what can be done to stop these botnets?
Well, Stephen, unfortunately, if you're the target of one of these attacks, with the sheer number of requests per second that a 25, it's just a mind-boggling amount of devices. If they're all just going and targeting your web host, you are probably hosed, for lack of a better term. But however, there are some things that can be done. If you look in the show notes at the associated article, you'll find that many of these attacks started off with a very kind of soft email-based phishing attack. So, standard practices, just like brushing your teeth, brushing up on those security practices of identifying if a link is potentially phony, not just clicking on things as soon as they show up in your inbox, maybe, forwarding it on to your IT admin and saying, hey, this seems kind of fishy. But also too, it does draw into question, as the article also notes, many of these attacks coming out of Latvia are targeting Russia, which is kind of ironic given that, several of the major attacks that we have been kind of tracking over the past few weeks have been originating from Russia and going into other places. So it's kind of interesting to see the shoe on the other foot here. And perhaps, the massive cyber teams over in Russia and perhaps the ones that we have here in the States or, around the world can kind of recognize that at the end of the day, we all have some common similarities, and one of those similarities is that we are all under the looming threat of Maris. So perhaps some of these teams can perhaps join forces and try their best to perhaps create something that can be run on some of these devices, because no doubt many of them have been acquired under less than savory means, shall we say, and are perhaps just some regular old person's cell phone or their computer, and perhaps they can make a joint patch that can be sent out to help address the malware that this botnet is using. But until then, we're just gonna have to be a little scared, which is the sad but true truth of it. And here's to all the cybersecurity professionals out there who are actively working against Maris, and we wish you all the best and Godspeed. So Stephen, let's switch tacks again. This time we're going to talk about a new service that's available to people that's rather interesting, because users of Lenovo's TrueScale can now take advantage of a new groundbreaking feature. They can increase the number of cores available for their machine without having to swap in new processors. This silicon as a service feature allows companies to scale their Intel core usage without having to request Lenovo to alter their rack layout. In that way, Lenovo and Intel can deploy singular high-volume configurations, which allows Intel to ultimately sell Lenovo their highest core count processors. Stephen, Is this a good move for both parties?
Well, sure, it's cool that you can do this, and of course it kind of ticks the box of the composable infrastructure that we've been hearing about lately. But there's a really interesting angle to this story, and that's that nobody knows how Lenovo's doing this. So, as you said, essentially a customer of theirs can basically say, "Look, I need another CPU core." And dynamically, without rebooting, without doing anything, the system can reconfigure and scale up with more CPU cores. That's cool. We don't know how they're doing it though, and they're not telling how they're doing it. So how exactly do you add a CPU core to a running instance? And what is it about the Intel Ice Lake servers that they're using that allows it to happen? We're not 100% sure. So that's one interesting angle. To me, there's another interesting angle here too, and that is that the way that they're metering these servers is not based on cores or usage or load or some kind of agent that's running on the server. They're actually just watching the power draw. And again, that's kind of neat, isn't it? So they're literally just watching how many watts the server is pulling down and billing you for that. Again, I like the creativity of this thing. I like the fact that they're able to do this. It does seem to me that the only way they're able to accomplish both of these tasks is by provisioning a too big server, disabling it in some way or throttling it in some way, and then allowing you to unthrottle it on demand, which, isn't all that cloudy because it's not shared infrastructure. And it's also not all that financially feasible to be doing this, but who knows? It's cool. It's a clever twist. And frankly, it's kind of cool to see Lenovo innovating in this space. Zach, we do have another exciting security compromise this week. Credentials pilfered from 87,000 unpatched Fortinet SSL VPNs have been pasted online. The company confirmed this, and it says that it's remnants of the Babuk gang that wreaked ransomware havoc earlier this year. Zach, what does this mean for Fortinet customers, since a lot of businesses rely on their products?
Well, Stephen, I kind of feel like a broken record today, but sometimes you just got to go back to best practices. If you're a Fortinet customer, you might want to change your password and use something that's more than 8 characters. Got a few unique characters thrown in there, some numbers, some capitals. Just like the things that you're taught when you're trying to log into a new service. So Fortinet's actually a pretty good friend of ours here at Gestalt IT, and really it's heartbreaking news to hear that they have been compromised, but it's even more heartbreaking to hear that the target of this attack was VPNs. As we were talking about earlier at the top of the show, remote work is here, and unfortunately, it is a security nightmare for some people. And having VPNs, which act as that secure tunnel to get back into your organization's key crucial treasures, if you will, that juicy data back on prem. If that's compromised, then that's pretty much it for you. So if you are a Fortinet customer, I don't think that you should be thinking about jumping ship right about yet, but you definitely should be thinking about going through and changing up your login credentials and perhaps kind of just doing that across the board. And honestly, I think it's something that really in this day and age a lot of people should be considering, because so many organizations and just individuals in general have just been using the same credentials for the past 4, 5, 10 years now. And it won't be soon before long that all of those credentials in association with you and the services you use will be available on the internet for anybody. So it's one of those things where I just harken back to those best practices of sometimes you just got to change your password out. Sometimes you've got to think about coming up with your new key phrase that you're going to use dispersed through all your password engines, what have you. It's a scary time out there. So one can only hope that both individuals and companies alike are really starting to think, maybe this security thing is important. But until then, we'll just have to keep running through the news, which, speaking of, we've got a pretty interesting story to talk about here, as a rather big C-level move happened earlier this week when VMware's GM, Fidelma Russo, announced that she would be stepping down from her position in the company. And originally we all thought, hey, this is she's just letting us know that she's moving on with her career. But just a few days ago, let us know she's making a move in a big way, as she will be the new CTO of HPE. Stephen, you're a friend of Fidelma. How does this bode for HPE, for VMware, and for Fidelma Russo?
Yeah, it's exciting. As you mentioned, I've worked with Fidelma many times over the years. She's got an amazing career. The best product I ever worked with in IT was the Data General Avion servers, and she was the GM of those servers while I was a customer. After that, she spent time with Dell EMC, with Sun, with HP, with Dell EMC again, with VMware. This is somebody who really, really knows her stuff, and frankly, I would not have at all been surprised to see her be promoted to CTO of VMware, because of course she's worked with Raghu Raghuram in the past and knows quite a lot about VMware. Word is that she might have actually gotten that position, or at least been in the running for that position, right before she left, which is really weird. There's a really weird angle here. We don't know what's going on. With some people saying that she might have actually been VMware CTO for a couple of days before another friend, and a great choice, Kit Colbert, was given that job at VMware. So again, Kit absolutely deserves that position. He is just a tremendous person. Really knows his stuff, knows where VMware is headed, and I'm glad to see him as CTO. And I'm equally glad to see that HPE was smart enough to bring in, somebody like Russo to be the CTO there, because quite frankly, HPE has done some really nice stuff, moving the business into this as a service market with their GreenLake product. Quite frankly, they were one of the first enterprise companies to move to an all as a service model. And they have really done a nice job of trying to allow customers to buy things as a service instead of as CapEx. So I really do expect great things from her. Again, Fidelma Russo, she is just a tremendous executive, really knows this stuff, really knows the history of servers as well as the future from VMware, and it's a great move all around. So yeah, I wish her the best. I give HPE a pat on the back for landing such a great person as their CTO, and as well as VMware. And the whole thing just makes me say, why the drama? Let's get on and do some great work. Zach, we do have another executive shuffle to report on here quickly. Just this morning, Arcus, a friend of Tech Field Day, who's presented a couple of times, announced that in tandem with a new strategic approach and some more cash, they're appointing a new CEO, former VMware veteran, Shekhar Iyer. As edge and 5G use cases continue to expand, Arcus looks to set themselves up for success in this exploding area and build some momentum to finish out the fiscal year. What's your take on Arcus's new CEO?
Stephen, I think it's a great move, especially as you said, Arcus is really looking to take advantage of this rapidly growing space. And, given IR's experience in, just in the general tech field, it's going to be a real boon to add to their lineup. And I'm honestly really excited about it. Our boots on the ground reporter, Tom Hollingsworth, has actually been in communications with Arcus and IR, talking about this new move. But, unfortunately, he is running our networking field day event as we speak, and, can't share, but look forward to an upcoming conversations. I'm sure he'll be talking about it in more detail. But as for my opinion, I think this is a really great move. Arcus certainly seems to be setting themselves up to really kind of take the market by storm and use this new influx of cash and this new man at the helm to really move forward in the space, which is really exciting. And also, curiously, I just want to take a quick step back. And now this is two pretty big figures that are leaving VMware, which also draws into question, what's going on over there? Are they looking to make a big upheaval in the space? We did recently talk about how Dell is spinning them off into their own smaller sister company, and so these moves might be perhaps setting up a new order over at VMware. So we'll have to stay tuned and really kind of keep an eye on this one, because it's going to be interesting over the next coming months. But at the end of the day, congrats Arcus, congrats Shekar IR, and yeah, really excited to see what you guys have in the future. So Stephen, let's move on, and we've got a couple stories here that I think warrant a closer look. And this one in particular, we're gonna have to look out, because what's that in the sky? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it Superman? Is it a flying horse infecting Apple devices? It's that one. This week, in an emergency update, Apple released a patch preventing the Pegasus spyware from infecting any Apple device with a single click. Yes, we've all got one sitting here on our desk. I've got my Mac right here. Yeah, single click. Really scary stuff. When infected, the devices could be made to activate their microphone and camera, among many other features of the device, and then sending all the information gathered back to Pegasus creator NSO to be dispersed among their clients of various repute, whether it's governments or small-time baddies. But regardless, Stephen, was this move by Apple just in time, or do you think it's perhaps a little too late?
No, I think Apple has done exactly what they should do here. And I should point out, it's not a single click, it's a zero click. That's right. They can iMessage you and take over the entire phone, all functions of the entire phone, microphone, camera, everything, without you doing anything. And that is nuts. And the nutsest thing here is that Apple absolutely is working on these things, absolutely is focused on these things. They are fighting these zero clicks at every turn. And frankly, if Apple can't secure the iPhone, which we know that they're putting basically unlimited resources in terms of money and time and manpower and attention into securing these things, if they can't secure this, then nothing is secure, because Apple absolutely is doing what they can do. In this case, the forced entry zero click was reported to Apple apparently on September 7th, and iPad OS and iOS 14.8 were released on September 13th to close this gap. In other words, this thing was fixed in less than a week by Apple, from report to repair being pushed out on every iDevice out there in the field. And yet, we probably know that there's probably another one that Pegasus Group or NSO Group has with the Pegasus spyware operation. So it's just incredible. And as we've reported as well, the other thing that really disappoints me is the fact that the NSO Group has not done what they should do in terms of keeping this stuff under their hat, or at least keeping it in the hands of, I hate to say the good guys, because is anybody the good guys in this story? But basically, they've let this thing get out there and be exploited against activists. And in fact, that's how this thing got found. Citizen Lab literally found this on the phone of a Saudi activist. And it's just, I don't know, maybe, do you want to talk about that angle, Zach?
Yeah, it's super heartbreaking to me personally. It's just one of those things that this is the dystopian nightmare situation. This is the Big Brother can see everything that you're doing, except in this case, Big Brother is pretty much anybody who wants to pay the NSO Group just a little bit of money. So yeah, super scary. But going back to the top of the show, we talked about that statistic of security versus operations, and it seems like Apple has hit the point where their operations are running smoothly enough that yes, in fact, they do care about security. And to the security team over at Apple, thank you, because this, is a literally terrifying scenario. So I can only imagine the amount of work that was put in over those few days between when the exploit was found and when they patched it. And I really appreciate that work because, yeah, I mean that saved millions of people from this massive threat. And so we're much obliged to you. Very, very much appreciate that.
Yeah, I do think that Apple is absolutely doing what they can do to protect their customers from this, because this is, egg on the face, because security is kind of the pitch for iOS. And if they can't keep it secure, well, then that's a big fumble. So I do think they're doing what they can. But the truth is that once a system becomes so complex and has so many different moving parts, there's just going to be a lot of potential for exploit in there. And that's pretty much what we're seeing here. Also, the other aspect here that's been true of all security exploits is that once something becomes a tasty enough target, somebody's going to figure out how to exploit it. And it just seems that that's what we're seeing here again and again. So, Zach, let's talk about a different exploit that's affecting an equally high-profile company. Researchers have uncovered a new exploit in Microsoft Azure that allows them to exploit the container as a service boundaries of Azure. This comes hot off of the Cosmos DB exploit, which we previously reported, and draws into question some of the security practices going on, because unlike what we're talking about here with Apple, this one seems pretty amateurish. What are your thoughts on the Azurescape exploit?
Yeah, Stephen, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Amateurish really comes to mind here because it's just unreal that you're one of the largest companies in the world and you've had not only one, but two of the most, considerably major attacks on your Azure cloud service. And this is over the past, 2 months. What's going on? Why aren't you guys keeping tabs on these things? You'd think with one of the largest cloud deployments in the world, you would have hit the point already at this time where things would kind of be at cruising altitude and you could really invest in having a strong security team. And not to mention the fact that, like you said, this is coming right off of Cosmos DB. You'd think that they would have probably hired 4, 5, 10 people just to form their own security team just for that wing alone. So it's a real head scratcher for me. And honestly, I've got no clue how these kind of attacks are happening at such a clip, at such a on such high profile targets. And obviously, people are going to try and swing as high as they can in these scenarios, but you've got to be ready and anticipating that this is going to happen and respond. And it's just a very disheartening thing to hear that Microsoft is apparently not concerned enough to really put people and put money behind keeping these things safe. And it's I'm for lack of a better term, I'm appalled. How do you feel about it, Stephen?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is that this wasn't rocket science. The root of this whole thing was a known vulnerability in software that hadn't been updated, or that they were running outdated software from 5 years ago. And that's just amazing that they would be relying on that for their high profile, Azure service. In fact, pretty much every aspect of this thing was a known vulnerability, and it was just a chain of known vulnerabilities. And the thing is too that we should mention is that Azurescape was apparently exploited. Unlike some of the other things that we've talked about, including the Cosmos DB exploit, which we don't know if it had been used widely, this thing had been used widely. In fact, I am hearing a rumor, and not confirmed, but I'm hearing a rumor that one reason that they discovered this, that Palo Alto discovered this, was because somebody was running a crypto mining operation in containers that should not have been heavily loaded. And so essentially it was the CPU load of an active crypto mining attack that tipped them off that something weird was going on here. I don't know if that's true, but we do know absolutely that this thing was in the wild and was exploited, and that there was actually a video online showing exactly how to exploit it. That's, I guess, what's going to happen here. So if you're running a service, if you build software on open source, please, please, please keep it updated. Please, stay up to date with the known vulnerabilities. Don't build your service on something from 5 years ago with known vulnerabilities and hope for the best. That's just not going to happen. And also watch out for these things. That was another aspect of this, is that essentially you had credentials escaping once again, where they really shouldn't have been. In fact, that's what Microsoft did to turn this off, is they just said, oh, well, maybe, we shouldn't send the key. Boom, don't send the key. Maybe the least secure method is the best method, or the most secure, I don't know, least information, I don't know, whatever it is. Maybe that's the right approach, instead of, trying to constantly play whack-a-mole with the latest exploit. Maybe architect these things so that they're a little bit more secure right out of the box. So anyway, it's a bad story. It really doesn't look good. It's not a good look for Microsoft. And I hope that they do better in the future.
Yeah, I agree. And, if you're sitting there watching this show and saying, I completely agree with you. Why are we not focusing on security? Perhaps it's time to bring your cat into work and walk into your boss's office and say, hey, have you seen my cat? Also, have you heard of security? And just try and do a little lobbying of your own to try and get, just shave off a little bit more budget, because clearly, as we've seen, these things are not going to stop soon. But neither is the news. And, we're going to keep coming out every week with new news for you to enjoy and perhaps cringe a little bit at. But we're also doing a whole lot of other great things over at Gestalt IT too. And Stephen, would you like to share some of the fun things that you have going on right now?
Yeah, Zach, as you mentioned, Tom Hollingsworth isn't here with us this week because he's running Networking Field Day right now. Just go over to techfieldday.com today and tomorrow. You can see live presentations from Networking Field Day. Of course, you can also see recordings of all those presentations on our YouTube channel. Also, I'm really excited to say that we're now deeply into season 3 of our Utilizing AI podcast. Every Tuesday, we're going to have a great enterprise AI discussion if you're interested in that topic. And of course, you can also check out the Gestalt IT podcast. What's up with you?
Yeah, Stephen, I've been following along with Networking Field Day, both in the event and on Twitter, and it's just blowing up. It seems like everyone's having a lot of fun watching the companies that were presenting yesterday, and I'm really excited to see what's going on with the companies presenting today as well, too. And I'll be covering all those posts as I do, as well as finishing off the events from this most recent Tech Field Day that you just hosted. And so lots of good coverage there. Just once again, over at gestaltit.com, you can see everything that we've got going on. But, until then, for myself, for the entire team here, for you, Mr. Storage, and for our colleague, Tom Hollingsworth, this has been the Gestalt IT News Rundown. We hope you have a fantastic week.